right. It says that we are live on air. We are live on air. So welcome, Nana, to Coffee with Kofi. Thank you so much for saying yes and making my dream to speak to you more extensively a reality. How are you?
Oh, I'm well, thank you. Thanks for having me. I love a chat. So looking forward to this one,
Oh,
definitely.
oh my goodness. Two chatty patties. This could be the record for the most lengthiest of podcasts, but it'll be worthwhile, I'm sure. And what I was thinking is before I start
Mm,
to situate us and provide some context, I could do a brief introduction for you. How does that sound?
sounds amazing.
All right. So then you can fact check me. I always like this thing because then it's like, is your research actually factually correct or did I make it up? So
I, yeah,
listen
let's
out for
do that.
this.
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. So thank you to everyone that's tuned in from wherever you are. I hope that you're doing well today. Welcome to Coffee with Kofi, which is the space where we explore bold careers, brave leadership, and the journeys behind meaningful work. Today, I'm super proud to be joined by someone who doesn't just talk about systems change, she builds it. Nanna Soenya is the founder of OmegaSeven Global, the visionary behind FundHerShip, and the driving force behind PIE Advisory, where power, insight, and ecosystems come together to reshape how organizations and communities grow. Her work, your work, sits at
Mm,
the intersection of strategy, equity, and impact, and you have dedicated, said she, but as you hear, you have dedicated your career to designing systems that expand access, dignity, and opportunity. And what my hope is from this conversation, no pressure, is that we will explore Nana's international career journey, the pivotal moments that shaped her path, and why giving back isn't an afterthought in her work. It is actually the foundation. So, yeah, we'll also unpack other bits around what it means to follow your passion in a practical, sustainable way and how to build the career that feels aligned and not accidental. So grab
yeah.
your coffee or tea or water or whatever and settle in and let's sip into that inspiration. Thank you so much again.
Yay.
Thank you.
That was a wonderful introduction. Thank you. That's lovely.
Yeah.
Now I have to actually live up to
Well, listen, I gave room for poetic license in there,
it.
but broadly speaking, did it sound like someone that you knew, someone that you've been in proximity to?
Sometimes, a few days in
Yeah.
a week, I come across this woman.
Legendary, legendary.
Yeah.
Good.
So
What,
yeah,
what, what, mm,
it's nice to it's interesting because you look back on yourself and you think, who was I going to be?
mm,
And you see what you're doing and you compare. Did I think I was going to be here? Did I think I was going to be able to? Did I ever imagine myself being somebody who
mm,
did this? Because a lot of what I do comes so naturally that it's not something I thought, oh, this is I last time we spoke, I told you about my career goals, that now I have career goals.
yeah,
and
yeah.
it's interesting because previously I don't know what I had. I just kept going, I just kept doing, I just kept moving. And
Mm,
now I have a goal because I can see the shape of who I have become and I'm becoming leading me towards that path. Right.
mm,
So yeah, it's nice to hear. It's nice to look back and go, wow, there's so much more for me to work on and achieve. Um,
100,
but
100%.
yeah, it feels good. It feels good. I'm like, oh, so yeah, can somebody tell my mum how well I'm doing? Thanks.
Listen, and we're going to get into this about mothers and of a particular background, I'm sure. But
Yeah.
I second what you said insofar that maybe it's the age that we are at or what have you, but I do really feel that life is really experienced progressively. So you wake up, you move forward, one foot in front of the other, you have some setbacks, you get up and you go again, etc. But to really understand it is through looking back retrospectively on
Yeah.
reflection. And I think when I love doing these conversations, one, because I'm nosy, two, because I like to share people's stories, but three, because I think it gives an opportunity to pause and actually look back at the journey that we all go through and go on.
Mm,
And like to your point, unintentionally, but now
yeah.
understood,
Yeah.
you've ended up, and here we are doing this podcast. So let's do it. Let's do it. And
Yeah.
before I start, I really thought it'd be good to situate people with your background. I love
Mm.
biblical references. People often hear me say, "So tell me about your Genesis." And so for me, I'd love to hear your Genesis, so we can share it with people in terms of where, to whom, and maybe when you were sort of dropped onto this planet, really.
Well, yes. I was born in a hospital that's famous to some, famous, unfamous to others, called Kolebu in Accra, Ghana, in
I know.
1980. In 1980, to into a family that was large and vibrant and very united. Um, and into a style of motherhood that, in retrospect, has just carried on across my family, my grandmother, my mother, my grandmother's mother, um, where the women have been very, very um, determined on how they want to live, right? Whatever that is, it's not necessarily career wise, but they've just been very set. And so when I was growing up with my mom and my siblings, and there was no father figure in the house, um, because my father at that time was living in London, and we were there, but there was no lack. There was no feeling of, oh, there's no father here. There's no, because maybe because we had uncles, and we had granddads and granduncles and all of that. So I grew up in a really united uh, family that laughed a lot, especially at tragedy, right? And
Mm,
so our family, um, I it was always about knowing what you're talking about, speaking well, and not taking things too seriously. Right,
okay.
that's a trait of my family. I for a long time thought that was just all Ghanaian families, but I realized it wasn't.
Mm,
The-
mm,
so we laugh about so much. There's something about even in the most tragic moments, we will cry laughing at things. Like even the most, Ghanaian families are full of funerals. Like even in the most solemn moments, somebody, it doesn't matter what their age, will do one thing, and all of us will end up laughing. It wasn't always the children that were doing the silly things. It's like one
mm,
adult will look at in a certain way, will say one word, and we would all be. And that's what I grew up knowing. That joy,
mm,
that laughter, that yeah, just and it wasn't because we had a hard life. It was just my family was like that. And obviously there was tragedy. There was families separating and going into different countries, because that was the time in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s, where a lot of Ghanaian families were coming into Europe and America, etc. So we were separating in that way. It was really hard, but that stayed with me. And
mm.
so that's the kind of roots that I come from. I come from my grandmother, her last husband. Her last husband was one of the cohort that was part of Kwame Nkrumah's uh, group,
Oh,
right?
really?
Yes. And so, she just before a few years, I think, before she died, there was a documentary done about my grandma and her role with her late husband. And so my grandmother had always been somebody who moved forward with the times. She was in Winneba, she was the chief baker of the town when there used to be a chief baker, and I think her mom was the chief baker, and she would do all sorts of things. But she had so many husbands because as soon as she saw a man misbehaving, she walked away. Right. She didn't and that this was back in the 40s,
Yeah.
and
She wasn't playing
she
games.
was
It wasn't
not
gonna
playing games, and that's kind of carried on within our family. It's
mm,
it's been it's been a thing we do, and I didn't understand where it was coming from until I heard fully my grandmother's story. My grandmother was an extremely intelligent woman, very witty. Um, um, Again, I think we all get our humor from her. Very witty, consistently and continuously on the ball with everything. Insufferable to what she would call stupidity, right? Did not like you're not allowed. It doesn't matter.
yeah.
to be
I
silly.
I have
To
to
be
say, I
stupid,
think,
not silly, but you're not allowed to not be intelligent. You're not allowed. Like, it
yeah,
doesn't matter what your
it's not
capacity is.
permissible. Yeah,
Stop permissible. If it's your problem, sort it out. Get
fantastic.
intelligent. So I grew up under that kind of pressure in terms of, it wasn't a conscious pressure, but it was always a holding yourself to a high standard
Um,
in terms of your speech. Like, what you say has to align with what you think. In my family, you weren't allowed to think one thing and say one thing and behave in another way. You would be held to account continuously, right? You would be
mm,
called out, right? And if you were consistently not doing that, the whole family had a right to call you out, and we
yeah,
still do, right? Um, so that's my genesis. That's where I come from. I come from um, loving brothers, loving sisters, loving cousins, and lots of laughter
yeah.
in the midst of tragedy. So,
You miss,
and everybody being very, very much, you can't be stupid.
yeah, you miss one thing in there, which is maybe the line to you can't be stupid, but not suffering um foolishness and not taking things just because that is the status quo. Because when I think back to your grandma, I draw the parallel between the sort of life that you forged for yourself, where if it doesn't make sense, then it's not something that you just be
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, because it doesn't make sense. And so I think your grandma deserves accolades, but also her own TV show, and we can work on this. This
Yeah.
could be a test that we go on.
Oh my goodness, you
Should
did
be,
like
this should
her.
be,
She's a legend, and
mm,
everybody has an experience, and a notable experience with her.
mm,
Everybody, and yes, her passing was a big thing in our family.
mm.
But yeah, so yeah, that's my genesis. And in terms of my father's side, my father was very much politically driven, very aware of social issues, very strict. My father's side was very strict. He was yes, very much militant in his way
Mm,
of being, which I have had to work through because I see it's genetic. I see it on my siblings on my father's side. I see it on my nieces and nephews. There's a militancy about how we live that is scary sometimes. Even I get scared. I'm like, what is easy?
what's going on? Yeah.
What's going on? Because but it's this is when you see how much genetics affect, because it's not, they're such lovely, especially my nephews and nieces, they're such lovely people, but with one look you will stand straight. And it's passed down from my father, right? It's
Mm,
passed down from that man, and he was very much a very militant, very a straight person, who suffered a lot because as a black man in this country, he came here in like the 50s as a black man, one of the first Ghanaians in London in those times, like early 50s, because the large majority of Ghanaians came in the late 70s, early 80s, and he was here from time immemorial. And facing the discrimination and facing the hardships, and continuing in that, and that's slowly becoming his detriment, really, because of the stress and the trauma of constant microaggressions that you just have to deal with in some way, because where do you put it, what do you do, who do you talk to, I mean, or how do you process,
mm,
um so yeah, that's also been interesting. So that side of my family, I see in terms of observing my father from a very young age and seeing how pedantic he was about things, how specific he was about things, and what he exacted and expected of me. My father actually told me that I had to marry a man who was 7 years older than me, and from and he had to be from Takoradi. And I was like, how would I find that? And he has to have these amount of degrees, and he has to. And my father was like, this is our lineage, and this is how you need to carry it. And I was like, well, what if I want to marry somebody from Japan? And I said that to him. He was like, what?
it's just unfathomable, isn't it? And
What?
I interjected there because because I'm enthralled by the role of nature and nurture, and I know we can unpack this a bit more.
Mm,
I'm thinking in our journey to unpacking what you've been doing, we
mm.
must meander the car back onto
Yeah.
a tarmac surface, because where we're going is uncharted territory for me. I would love to, but I think
Yeah,
we lose something in not covering breadth of everything that you do. There's
yeah,
like, but then if we go from family to career and purpose and calling, there's so much in there, and time
yes,
is a thing.
yes,
Maybe we
yes.
do like a trilogy. We could do 3 parts.
Happy to do that. Absolutely happy. Because if that helps, then that helps.
Amazing.
Yeah, because
So,
there's layers. There's so many layers.
so many.
And I understand, and I've had to talk about it in that way because it helps people. Because people sometimes see you and they're like, oh, what steps did how did you get to be who you are, or do you know? And for me, it's always all the different layers of parts of my life and experiences in my life that
So
have
true.
allowed me to be fully who I am today and to walk confidently in what I know and who and how I know how to do it. So
Yeah,
yeah, definitely.
it's so true. I see us as like onions, with the different
Yeah,
rings of growth around us, or like one of those ancient oak trees where you saw through it and you
yeah,
see the rings of growth.
the
And
ring.
I think it's as you perhaps become more aware of yourself and more comfortable within your skin, you can access those different parts more readily,
Mm,
and if not access, you certainly understand them. Because yeah, going to Ghana recently, I was telling you about
yeah,
it, it hit me differently because I could feel the connection, and I could understand the brilliance, but then the BS as well, because
yeah,
it's
yeah.
all in there,
It's
and
all in there.
there's room for all of it. There's room for
Yeah,
all of it.
there has
So
to be. There has to be. Yeah,
so let me touch on your career journey, because
yeah,
that is just fascinating in its meanderingness, but purpose. So your career journey, from what I've gathered, has taken you across industries, countries, from hospitality, grassroots development to ecosystem design and advisory work, PIE.
yeah.
Yeah. Tough question, but what early moments do you think taught you or helped you to see systems not just as like individual opportunities, in shaping people's access, um, to greater fulfillment?
Mm. I'm gonna say I read over those questions and I thought, when did I start noticing systems? I think as soon as I was able to reason from what I'm told, and that started the questions. Why does this work in this way? Has
Mm,
anybody thought about why it should work in this way? And within my family structure, I began to question the systems of why things are working a certain way. It's much to the despise of my mum. But yeah, and that's where it started. So um, I would arrive at school. I used to go to school in Ghana before I came, and I used to go to school called St. Benedict. And I didn't have, at that time in Ghana, if you got to school late, they'd cane you, right?
yeah.
Cane your hand. I never got caned, but I was always late. And and I wasn't late because I was tardy. I was late because I didn't understand the logic as to why we had to arrive a certain time, because it didn't make sense to my timeline. And so my way of questioning the system was just arriving when I was ready to arrive. Um, and people will see that as, oh, that's a crazy excuse for someone who's late. No, I was dressed and ready, but I had other things to do. I had to read a book. I had to make sure something else was in place. And for me, that system was optimal for me. And so I
Mm,
stuck with that system even against everybody's raging, to the point where my mom gave up. She was like, she'll get there. And when I arrived at school, I would explain to my teachers, and they were absolutely fine. I never had trouble with teachers because somehow they understood my logic, and I'd always question things in a very respectful way. So from a
sure,
very early age, even when I came to this country and I began to do things, the school system was different, secondary school as well, work, everywhere I went, I'd always see, it wasn't because I was trying to nitpick, but there's always a system that's not working properly, right? Why do we have to get in? Why do we have to clock in that way? Is it not better to clock in that way? Have you seen that if you just move the table over there, everybody could pass through really easily? If you just shifted this there, and it was just a natural, I didn't think of it as, oh, I have this capacity. It was just a
Right.
natural part of who I am. And then when I began to work, and I quickly I'd be given supervisory roles. Quickly I'd be given, and I had the capacity to get the ear of those in leadership. For some reason, I didn't know. I just thought it was just me as a person, you know. And they would listen to me, and they would, so it just became a natural part of my life,
Mm.
really. And as time went on, is when I began to hone it in a bit more, especially when people started telling me, you know, can you mentor me? And I was like, I don't like what? What do you at your
Yeah.
own risk? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what I would always say, at your own risk. Because they would talk to me about things. I'm like, okay, but have you thought about it in this way? And it was
Mm.
always generally, oh wow, that is a really good way of looking at it. And for me, it'd just be like, well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, if it helps you, but it makes sense to do it this way, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So
It does.
so my career and my process, wherever I've been, the one thing that I have left behind is change.
Mm.
um, One thing that I have been able to do is change. When I started working in hospitality in this country, I was a receptionist, and nobody had ever been a receptionist and in the office at the same time. And I was like, it works better for my life if I'm in the office and I could do reception in the evenings or on other days. And I presented it to them, and they accepted, But previous to that, nobody had ever done that, you know. And
Mm.
so that's just part of it's just I come in as a tiny little storm. I throw things up in the air, and then they settle back in places where a lot of people find helpful. Not everybody, but most people. So
No. Well, I can see that. Not everyone is on the subject of change. It was something I was writing about yesterday. Not everyone is comfortable with it, particularly when it's unexpected change or change that was not chosen.
mm,
But as I was listening to you, there was this thread that I
mm,
picked in the beginning of our conversation around growing up and needing to be congruent with your thoughts and your words. And I just pictured this like debating society in your family where people
mm,
would discuss politics or
yeah,
just and
everything.
you have to make it make sense. And so I think where you were like, I don't understand why leaders would listen to me, or I didn't have problems with teachers. For me, I had this, well, no, I think I know why, because you get good at the things that you practice, and you've been practicing
Yeah, ever since I
for a
was a
while
child. Yeah,
how to respectfully
yeah,
have points of view
yeah,
and make yourself understood, which I don't think everyone has. So to me,
yeah.
there's a kind of as we're talking, it's just unwinding a bit. It ties in. It seems to tie in. Does it sound fair?
It does. It does actually, because again, as much as in my family, especially with a couple of my siblings, rather than shut me down, they would ask me to explain myself,
Mm.
right? And they would question me. And the questioning never made me feel like, oh, just believe what I'm saying. It would make me want to find better ways to explain myself, more efficient ways to explain myself that they could understand. Because as far as I was concerned, where I stood was correct. It's just about me getting you to understand it, and
Yeah.
wherever they were as well. So yes, that has helped me walk into spaces and walk into places, and be able to immediately see if anything needs to shift, and if that shift would be globally beneficial, even if certain individuals would struggle with it, right? Because at the end of the day, if you're within a system and the system isn't working, however much you are accustomed to the system, if it was working in a better way, it would benefit you. And that's how I see things. It's never, I've never looked at it, when it comes to systems and companies and all of that, on an individual level. It's always on a global level. And when it comes to individuals, I also take a stand of, okay, how you're in this individual specific moment of how you're trying to deal with this. But let's look out. Let's do a bird's eye view. of the
Hmm.
situation, and that's something I'm also really good at doing, like zooming out of the situation
Yeah.
and being able to see all the different parts and going, okay, so this is what is happening. And for a lot of people, they find it really difficult because the capacity to be objective is hard, right? Because and people actually say you cannot be objective, but for some reason I come from a place a lot of times of objectivity when it comes to looking at things, because I feel like if I'm only looking at it from a subjective point of view, I'm missing everything else,
Yeah.
right? So
Very
that
true.
so that helps me in terms of how you shape ecosystems and the parts of the ecosystems that you shape and how you advise people on how to move forward. You know, one time somebody said something to me, and it's really interesting that you say you like uh, religious references, and I didn't like the word at all. And they were like, and that person said to me, they'd known me for many years, and they said, you know, I've watched you and I've watched the way you do things, and I feel like the way that you deal with things is very apostolic. And I don't like that word because of how it's been bastardized by
Hmm.
so many people who walk around calling them apostle this, apostle that, apostle. And that's how I, anytime anyone has said that word outside of reading the apostles, and even then they weren't called, you know what I mean? I'd be like, ugh. And, but But when you actually look at the meaning, the definition of the word, what apostolic means is being able to have a global view on things that you're able to then allow people to walk into change with, you know.
Mm.
So that I don't walk around saying that a lot, but that helped me. It helped me sit better because
Yeah.
I was quite reticent. I knew what I did and I knew how I did it well, but I was quite reticent to accept the
Yeah.
fullness of my capacity and the fullness of what I could do. So
That is, yeah, that is, takes me back to something you said, which becoming. You know, Michelle Obama's got a book
yeah,
about becoming, and I think there's becoming in so many ways as human
mm,
beings. I like the image of it evolving. You know, like the chrysalis that becomes the butterfly and then
yeah,
takes and does its thing, because we're not born with innate knowledge or innate understanding. I think these are things that we pick up along the journey if we're awake to them. You know, so I'm going to not reflect too much because we've got a conversation to have.
yeah,
However, so because the question that I was thinking of next was when you talk about PIE advisory.
mm,
If I've got this right in terms of power, insight,
insights
and
and
assistance,
ecosystems. Yeah,
um, how did that framework emerge for you? Because I think you sort of started to sort of speak a bit about the
very
being able,
specific actually.
but yeah, but I
Yeah,
just wonder if we could laser in on that a bit.
my whenever I think about things, I always think about the root of things, right? Um,
Mm,
and a lot of a lot of systems, a lot of people, a lot of things work based on the power they have, the power they need, or the power they can leverage in any situation, right? If you think about it. And again, how the word power has been put into a particular hole, right? Power
mm,
means you're at the top of something. Power means you can tell people to do things. Power means you can and for me, the power you have, the power you can leverage, the power you all of that also comes from the power within, right?
mm,
And if you do not tap into the power that you have within you, a lot of what you try to do won't be done well because you don't understand the power within. And what I have seen, so when I start to talk to people, we work on what's the power within you, not, oh, I don't like the word empowerment. I don't, it's another conversation. I do not like the word empowerment at all. So, so when people say, oh, you're empowering women, and I'm like, no, I give power to women. It's very different to
mm,
empowering them. I give them the capacity to hold their power of who they are, in what they want to do, right? That's giving power. Empowerment is just a, yeah, you can do it, yay. And that's not, that's, for me, that's empty. You know what I mean? That's where power comes from for me. And then insight. Oh man, without insight, without the understanding of the knowledge you have, what are you doing? You're working on air and fumes, right? And so for me,
True.
insight is huge, because insight is not just what you know, it's understanding what you know and being able to apply what you know. Yeah. So we all are looking for and needing insight into everything. But a lot of times, a lot of us stay at the level of knowledge. I know this, I know that. But how does it translate into you actually working with it, with the knowledge you have in the most optimal way to achieve the things that you need to achieve? Even if that thing is cooking a meal that tastes nice, you've got the knowledge of the recipe. How do you put the things together for it to actually, have the substance, for
Mm,
example? So that's where insights come from for me. And I cannot, being the autistic person that I am, I cannot move forward without insights about things. Okay. So if you say to me, I've given you a glass of water, but it's not just water in here, and you're like, just drink it, it's going to be a problem. You need to explain to me what you're doing there. Because it's not that I don't trust you, it's not that I don't think it's nice, but you're saying to me it's going to do something. I'm just supposed to trust you with that. That doesn't help me. It doesn't,
no.
and we live in a world where people just throw out knowledge that is not insightful. It doesn't give you anything tangible to work with, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. That
yeah.
sounds to me, please correct me because this
Yeah.
is your thinking, not mine. I'm coming to it now. But it sounds to me um, to be similar to the difference between like learning by rote and then critical thinking. Like
Yeah.
I could I could recount Shakespeare. Well, maybe I could have, but do I really understand what Shakespeare is conveying? And then
Within the context of what he was conveying at the time,
yeah,
what those
yeah,
words meant.
yes, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
That's kind of, because again, I can read a poem. I write poetry, and I
Okay.
write poetry understanding that people will read my poetry and feel different things about my poetry, and understand different things about my poetry. But if you ask me, I will give you the insight to help you sit with it in a way that moves you in the way that I wanted you to be moved. Yeah? Completely different experience. You may have
Yeah.
gotten a lot out of my poetry, but until you have my insight, you can only experience a certain layer of what it is. And I think that's the same in everything. So insights
Um,
are highly important for me in terms of being able to understand. And the next thing is ecosystems, and why ecosystems are so vital to our survival. Our body is an ecosystem, right?
100%.
So if we understand that, and we understand that things thrive in ecosystem, this city is an ecosystem. So a great one, ecosystem. It's a financial ecosystem. It's, it's a cultural ecosystem. It's a laboral ecosystem. It's a lot of ecosystems, and a lot of those ecosystems, do they work, do they not work? And the challenge is this: a thriving ecosystem has the right components so that it can stand in and of itself. There are certain ecosystems in the city that if you take out one component, everything else will fall apart,
Like a house of cards type thing.
right? And that's why it's so fragile, and that's why it's so authoritative, that's why it's so restrictive, that's why because it it hasn't been able to thrive in a way where it can actually grow. Like the laboral ecosystem of this country, if you were to remove a certain demographic of people, it would collapse. Why? Because there's no balance. There's been nothing worked on to create something that would allow that ecosystem to actually thrive on its own. And so for me, understanding, being somebody who uh, lives in permaculture world. I am a permaculture person. I've learned a lot about permaculture farming, biodynamic farming. It really honed in for me the importance of being able to create ecosystems that allow you to thrive, right? An
Mm,
ecosystem of your home. How do you set up your home? Like, a lot of people are into feng shui because it's a particular ecosystem that allows you to have a certain feeling about things. And a lot of
mm,
times we go through our lives just, grabbing this, doing this, doing this, doing that. And we just create a jungle of overgrown things. We don't create an ecosystem within ourselves, within our societies, within our local environments that are actually optimal for thriving.
This is brilliant. This is and I'm going on a side quest. This is personal, and hopefully it will help someone else. Permaculture feels like something I've heard. I have no clue what it is. Please help me.
Permanent culture, the permanent cultivating of crops. So before industrial farming came into place, everybody practiced permaculture naturally. So you had your plot of land and you grew different things to help everything else grow. So you have beneficial things. So let's say you have carrots and you grow a certain thing so that the mites that would eat the carrots are not there, right? And that is, and then what you do is you prepare the land in such a way, you mulch, you enrich the soil, so you don't have to put things in the soil to keep the soil alive and to keep your food nutritious. Because at the beginning you prepare your soil and you clean. It's like a process of cleaning your soil so that your soil is rich and natural. And then you start to grow things, and you grow things in a way where it's seasonal. It's beneficial. You can grow weeds, you can grow fruit, you can grow vegetables, and everything lives in harmony with each other, like you would find in a tropical forest. In tropical forest, you go there, you'll see a plant, and if you have an expert with you, you'll say, "Oh, you see that plant next to it? That plant is poisonous, but the thing right next to it kills the poison." Ah, how is that? And that is the ethos, the natural way of farming. That's permanent
Um,
culture.
I get you now. I get you. I feel like it's the word escapes me, but harmony comes into it for sure. But essentially, like sometimes you might have a period where you could have it fallow to let it recharge, and but then
Mhm.
you plant different crops that are. Is it symbiotic? Is that a word? Is that does
Yeah,
that work?
it is a word that are beneficial to
Yeah.
the soil, that are optimal for the season, that are and there's plants that give into the soil, there's plants that extract from the soil, all of those things.
Yeah.
Like tomatoes are things that are really easy to get pests on. So you grow certain other things next to the tomatoes that repel the pests without you having to use pesticides.
So, no,
Those
see,
kinds of.
you have just sent me on this. This is my weekend's rabbit hole that you have literally. Thank you. I will thank you later or not.
Yeah,
But
you will.
I'm
And I'll just look up the Permaculture Institute. It's in Australia,
okay.
and it's been there since the 1970s, and that's where I started my journey. And obviously, permaculture is all over the world now. But yes,
Thank you. That's why I love it. Like I said, I'm nosy. It's completely altruistic. I do want to share this with everyone else out there, but I'm benefiting right now from this knowledge. So thank you. And I think you've kind of covered it really for the next question that I was going to have, because in discussing the P, the I, and the E, you've elaborated on why those are so crucial. So I'll jump to the next question, which is with PIE advisory and OmegaSeven, you're not only consulting, but you're also, like, as I see it, enabling pathways into funding,
mm,
and also strategic clarity. So this for me is the bit where lived experience, observational experience allows you to provide insights, the
mhm,
insights for that
mhm.
strategic clarity. What's one like misconception people have about pursuing a purpose-driven work? Um, and how does your approach kind of work to challenge that, if you will?
I think one of the misconceptions, there are many, as far as
Mm,
I see, because I have that. One of the misconceptions is that pursuing purpose-driven work has to involve suffering. You have to, has to be sacrificial in a martyrdom kind of way.
yeah.
And that's not strategic for me.
Mm,
I believe that pursuing purpose-driven work, especially if you want it to be effective, cannot come from a place of continuous, consistent struggle and sacrifice. That's not
oof,
purpose-driven.
oof. Preach, preach.
That's not purpose-driven. I can understand if at the inception you are working and it needs to be built, but you must have a strategy in place for you to be, because otherwise you're not effective in what you're doing. If you're pursuing purpose-driven work, it's because you're pursuing it to help others. Definitely, it's not for you. It's not self-serving. But if you put yourself in a place where you cannot grow out of the place where you are constantly in a struggle, and I find that with a lot of the women that I deal with, it becomes bitter, it becomes heavy, it becomes unfruitful. And as much as you can rejoice over the tiny wins, I see so many people missing the opportunity to really grow because their vision, their cosmovision, is limited, right? And sometimes it's limited not because they want it to be, but when you normalize the struggle in the purpose, it becomes what you do, right?
Yeah.
And I think I said it to you now first. There is no glorious purpose
No,
in
I remember that.
continuous, consistent struggle. There is none.
Yeah,
There
no,
is
you're right.
none.
I like the way that you position that because I understand the calling to do something that helps others. It's a super extractive industry to be in, like
Mm,
super extractive. You give of your time, your resource, so many
mm,
things.
mm.
And what I heard you say there was really that there must be a plan to transition from surviving to thriving because I guess creativity and sustainability aren't found where we are just surviving. That was my take on it.
Yes.
Does that land with you?
Also, I mean, life is not found where we are just surviving. Life, right?
Yeah.
Survival is not life. Survival is just that. You're not stepping into living life. You are in survival mode. You're just
Mm,
surviving. It's very different. People have normalized, like, oh, life is about survival. No, no. Yes, we try to survive from getting hit by a bus or a car or just having something fall on our heads. That's different. But when you place yourself into a position where everything you do is about surviving without the foresight and the planning to be able to live life, you're doing yourself a disservice because where are you drawing from? You're being sucked dry. Where are you? Where are your roots? If you look into your roots, do your roots have any nutrients? Do you have anything?
mhm.
Really? What are you giving? And then what happens is that I see it because I've worked in the international development and development sector and the charity sector for so long. People are dry, people are bitter, people are angry, people they're still there because of this warped idea of purpose, right? Why would you give me a poisoned drink and tell me that it's good for me? Because if you are surviving and you're not giving yourself to be able to live, everything you're giving me is tainted, thwarted, poisoned, unnutritious.
Yeah, you're so right. That's so right. And that brings me on to FundHerShip
Mm,
because with FundHerShip, something amazing that you and the team are doing there. Where my understanding is that there's a £10,000 monthly grant for Black and Brown women, which flips the script because I heard a stat which was scarily low. Something like only 2% of funding goes to Black women specifically. It may be less.
0.02%. Yeah.
0 point.
Yeah, 0.02%. It's very low. Very,
Yeah.
very, very, very low.
So that's even like what, a hundredth of what I thought. So what you're doing with these grants is really flipping the script on traditional funding models, but also funding routes. And I suppose what's the big insight that you've had about building
Mm,
fair systems rather than just navigating unfair ones? Because there is how it works, which is the 0.02,
yeah,
and there is what you're proposing and what you're actually not just proposing, you're doing,
yeah.
which is supporting women in ways that they need it most to go from, like we said, surviving to thriving, just with some
Mm,
breathing space, right?
yeah.
To just
Yep.
do that.
Yeah. The biggest the two that I want to share, if that's okay. One of the
Please.
biggest insights is that a lot of women, when we've heard people say women are building without infrastructure, they're building without networks, they're building in isolation, they're building. It is so painfully true. It is horrific, right?
Mm.
The lack of actual, real, clear information that will allow women to make strategic decisions about how they move forward is stark, stark. And with all the workshops, with all the accelerators, with all of those, I stand with my full chest to say most of it is BS. Because what we're finding is that the women are still in the same places and they're not going anywhere. Right? And if they are, they have to make such a big noise about the tiny little thing that they achieved because they haven't been told that actually there's a better way to achieve more. Right? That's one insight. The other insight is understanding how the funding system works. And outside of bias and discrimination and the fact that women in general, even the highest level of respected women, which is the white female, don't get funded as well. What is going on, at least in this country? And that insight is this: money begets money. And it sounds cliche, but if you are starting a business from your own pocket and daring to call it bootstrapping, which we've talked about, I don't want to call that.
Yeah.
It's from your own pocket, and you are never reaching a place where you pass the risk parameters of institutional funders, you'll never get funded. People will tell you, do your pitch deck, do your business plan, do your this, do your that. But even if you do have no debt, is your credit score at a place where a bank will look at you as not risky? No, you're not going to get funding. Have you been able to get enough money to create the traction that is needed for them to see consistent sales in what you're doing so they can say no, you're not going to get funding. Even if you're making enough money to survive, even if you're making enough money to pay your bills, have you been able to create something that for their parameters, which they have built, which works for the large majority of the population in this country, allows you to be inside? And for us, the large majority of the answer is no, you're not going to get funded, right? We need to stop pretending that looking professional and having headshots and having a pitch deck and having a business plan is what is going to get you funded. You need money. And that is what the FundHerShip grant does. It gives women who would never otherwise get funded the access to money that allows them to breathe enough to create something that, because we all, as we have businesses, projects, and ideas, especially if we have businesses, need external funding injected. All businesses do, all businesses get it. People get, large businesses, we hear about them getting, 1 billion from here, 5 billion from there. What are they doing? Aren't they profitable enough? That's the way business works. And what we've been taught is that, oh, no, start your business, get paid here, get paid there, get paid, and be happy with that. And, and we're not being told, get yourself in a place. Be strategic enough to get yourself, stop doing headshots. Be strategic enough to get yourself in a place where you can be funded, because you cannot go down this road of always picking out of the pockets that are empty already to serve.
Yeah. No, powerful, very powerful.
So yeah.
And how do people make themselves known to you and the team in terms of potential funding? How do they do that?
They apply for the grant. They become part of our ecosystem. If they want help with other types of funding, I always say to everybody, book a call with me. I'm happy to give you access to the people that I know, as long as you're coming to me with something that, and if you come to me with something that's not viable, I will tell you to your face. It's not, how are you doing that? And I've had a few calls with a few people. They're like, well, I kind of just thought that it would, happen. And I'm like, ugh. You need to think again. And I say it with, and by the time we get to that place, they trust me enough for me to say that. I don't start there. Yeah, they trust me enough to understand that I'm saying it not because I just want to poo-poo your idea, but I don't want you to suffer through this. That's not fun. Other people will be like, yeah, no, what, you want to open a dog farm in the middle of the city and this, that, and the other, and you took nice pictures with the dogs? Do it. No. You know what I mean? How are you gonna, what is your plan? So I feel like I tell people, come to us, join the ecosystem, apply for the grant, get involved, because the more people that get involved in our ecosystem, the more grants we can give out. It's a self-sustaining grant, right? My goal and aim is within 5 years to be able to be giving out 5 grants of £10,000 each month to Black and brown women in the UK. That is going to revolutionize the funding
Mass-
landscape here. And that is going to allow these women to be like, because once they can see that you've gotten funding, oh, you can get more funding. When you have nothing, you can't
yeah,
get anything. So
it
yeah,
is. So it's like the chicken and egg, isn't it? Like,
it
because
is
sometimes I
totally.
see it in the talent acquisition career I had, where the hiring manager would say, I really want someone that comes with X, Y, and Z. But if everyone wants someone that comes with X, Y, and Z, where does the person get the X, Y, and Z to come? So with that, I really see that funding, finance, there is no romance without finance. So you could have a lovely idea, but it
Right.
will not go far
It
without that.
won't. No, you're
So,
not fundable. Like they will literally say you're not fundable. They may humor you because you're smiling and you're really enthusiastic, and
yeah.
but you'll get a no,
Mm,
and then you'll feel like it's personal. Why did they reject me? Because I did all the things. But the challenge is this: they're not looking at your idea. They're looking at traction. They're looking at credibility. They're looking at demand. Have you created demand? It's a
mhm.
great idea, but have you created demand? Are you sure that someone else isn't making the same cream as you?
Yeah,
Are you
yeah,
sure that someone else isn't making the same juice as you? What
yeah.
is what have you created around you that is making sure that they're looking at this from a place of they're looking at this from 2 years ahead? What is this going to look like? And this is the thing: businesses fail. Tons of businesses fail,
Oh
right?
yeah. Most do within the first year. So yeah.
We have the 1 year period, we have the 3 year period, we have the 7 year period, we have the I think it's the 10, 15, and 25 years. Within all of those, a business can fail,
Mm,
right? And what keeps business going? Demand and cash injection. Demand, cash flow. Demand and cash flow, right? If you're able to be, if whatever it is you're doing can create demand, you're good, right?
yeah.
You can pivot, you can shift, you can change, you can go with the times. You're good. Let's look at Nokia. Let's look at Blockbusters. Let's look at all of those
Mm,
things that were
and
going for years
you-
and years, and
yeah.
they literally, well, Nokia's kind of, but they failed in a way. Let's look at BlackBerry. you know, and so when we look at it and we're not thinking at such a strategic level, and we're thinking, oh yeah, I've got this idea and I saw, I have a bunch of friends who need this thing, so I thought I'd start a business. What are you doing?
Yeah.
That's my
No, no.
question.
I mean, it honestly, I shouldn't laugh, but I do laugh because again, you speak the truth, and
And I do put
passion.
humor into it as well, so don't worry.
I think when you did say that you do have this thing in the family where you laugh at
We just look
tragedy.
at
Is true, when someone's business is not viable, but there is a funny side to it.
yeah.
Trevor Noah called it Schadenfreude or something like that. Um, but so I wanted to ask you another question, which is like for someone that's listening who's torn between the financial realities of life and following their passion in a sustainable way. I'm going to add that because we just talked about that.
Mm,
What advice do you share about aligning personal purpose, not just doing stuff because all my friends like it, with professional strategy? Because I feel like there is that sweet spot where it means something to you. There
mm.
is one for it that allows you to get the cash flow and execute. So again, what advice do you share about aligning personal purpose with professional strategy?
Um, hmm. It depends on who, but let's generalize it, because everybody's situation is different. Do you have do you live in a place of financial oppression? That's my first question. Are you
Mm,
financially oppressed? What is financial oppression? Do you have to look at your accounts every month to see where you are? But not look at it to say, oh, I'm about to move this here and do this here and do this thing, but actually to tally up so that you can get to the end of the month. If you are in that place, I do not suggest you going into business, right? I understand for a lot of women that they're fed up of their jobs, they're fed up of, some of them are in positions where they're not being hired, they're not doing this. And I say to them, you need to find a way to have freedom, because as we talked about, financial oppression stunts creativity, it stunts innovation, it mentally. it keeps you looking like with blinders on because you're just
Yeah.
trying to survive. That's my first question. Can you get into a place of not financial freedom, but relief, right? Can you make ends meet to the point where you're not freaking out? How do you do that? In today's day and age, in our world today, in our internet world today, there are many legal and dignified ways to make money. If you are passionate enough, you will do it. I'll give you an example about the FundHerShip grant. The FundHerShip grant is the corporate social responsibility of my company, right? I knew that I had to start with something that would allow me to get into the spaces that would then allow me to be taken seriously about what I know. So I started the FundHerShip grant. The corporate social responsibility, meaning that I didn't make any money from the FundHerShip grant. We don't make money from the FundHerShip grant. But the FundHerShip grant in and of itself was the vehicle through which now we advise, we have funding. Do you know what I mean? And so when you don't have a strategy, like, okay, I want that passion, but how am I going to get myself to a place where I can access that passion without begging, without going through all of, how do I do that? And that's what I talk about, not being financially oppressed, right? I have a strategy and I have a goal. And at this time, my timeline is right on target for getting the things that I need, right?
Right.
And there was a sacrifice in the beginning, but if I had started the FundHerShip grant and said the FundHerShip grant is the only thing I'm doing, how am I eating? How am I feeding myself? What's going to keep me going outside of the passion? Let's
Yeah.
not do this to ourselves. That's crazy. Who does that? I mean, who's living? Because it affects your mind, it affects your mental health, right? Yeah, I've got to do this. It's my passion. I need to help people. But you have nothing to give.
Yeah. No, for me, I'm picking up the importance of strategy.
Yeah.
You can say it, and the importance of being intentional about what we're trying to do. And I think neither negates doing things that mean something to us at all,
No.
but from the way you've broken it down, they're really essential ingredients that we're putting into this cake to do the things that we want and we love. But I really like the overlaying of being in a position of financial,
Relief.
I wouldn't say freedom, but not in the fullest sense
No.
where you don't need to work, but
No.
not, let's just use your words, they're better, financial oppression. So you don't need to be checking your balance every month. So you've got something, you've got a little war chest
Something.
or big war chest that's there that allows you the freedom to really think creatively. So yeah, I think financial oppression.
And what is the thing? Money makes things work out faster and quicker and easier, right?
True.
Like if you want to move house, if you have the budget to move house, it is far quicker, far easier to move house than if you have to budget to move house. Okay, now I have to take like 3 months to pack my stuff, and then I have to save to do that. And I have, just as an example, and that's what we are used to, because as immigrants in this country, a lot of us, even if we lived well in our countries, we came here and we immediately became poor, and not only poor, immigrants, right? Which is a different. It's like we immediately lost everything, and we got into the habit, and it became habit to count everything. It just became, even if we didn't even, and I think this is the thing, I say it gently, because when I say financial oppression, I'm not saying people are willingly wanting to live in that space, but that is what you've inherited, and that is where you are, and that is what is normal for you, right? When you people ask nowadays, maybe we don't ask so much. People ask, why, if you were in an abusive situation, relationship, why didn't you leave? Why couldn't you just leave? And we all know why, because it's not that simple. It's not that simple to shift. It's not that simple to change. So when I say this, I don't say it as, oh yeah, just stop being financially oppressed. No, you need to recognize painfully where you are. That's the difficult thing. And once you begin to recognize that, just like anyone with Alcoholics Anonymous, knowing that you're an alcoholic doesn't change anything, right? You need to take the steps to sitting with it, to uncomfortability, to the place where you are able, with help, normally external help, to change.
Yeah, you're so true, so true. Who's it? I think it was James Baldwin said that not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced.
Exactly.
And I think that I love it, because I feel like sometimes it is suffering, but with suffering it comes awareness, and that suffering might be just becoming conscious or cognizant of the fact that actually my situation is pretty dire. Like, to hear your words
Stop
like
it.
that,
Yeah. Stop pretending.
yeah,
Like
that
you've got a cancerous tumor on you. Stop pretending it's scratch.
yeah, and let
Yeah.
me do something about that, and then perhaps sequentially the strategy and this and that can follow afterwards. So thank you, dose of realness. And I hate it, but this is going so fast. But
Yeah.
I hate it because I want to just talk for the rest of the day. But I'm gonna try it and distill it to, maybe I can't do it. I'm gonna try and distill it to some questions. I was gonna say a number, but I'm not gonna stick with it, so I'm not gonna say a number. See what I
Okay,
got.
that's fine. That's
so, so
don't set expectations you can't keep. It's
no,
fine.
I'm reversing the car. I'm not going to say a number. But one of the questions that was on my mind was around international experiences. So I know that we talked about you living internationally, and the projects that you've tackled have also been international in their sort of remit. Um, Cultural nuances, sectorial nuances, and all being part of that. How has this shaped your understanding of work that is meaningful on both like a personal and maybe a global scale?
Um, First thing that my international experiences have done is humble me.
Mm,
Um, they've humbled me into understanding that as much as for the large majority of time I am the center of my world, I am not the center of the world, right? A lot of times we forget that. Um, and so for me, it's so important to I always consider there's somebody in the in I went to Sri Lanka. There's somebody in Sri Lanka who is a tour guide who has a family and they have their house and they do this and they do that. And their experience of life is so different to mine. And their problems are maybe trivial to me. My problems may be out otherworldly to them or trivial to them. And so with that, it's helped shape how I see the challenges that we have in our society, in our work, in the things that I do. Um, I feel like I say this thing a lot. There's people that I meet. I'm like, your world is very small. Sometimes it's an insult. Sometimes it's just a recognition, and I use it interchangeably because
mhm.
I'm Ghanaian, so I can insult. So it's like your hair looks interesting. Like sometimes it's an insult. Sometimes it's an observation. And what it has allowed me to have is a big world, which means that when I'm considering change and ecosystems and how it affects people, I never consider it from solely my viewpoint, my cosmovision. I'm always carrying the people I met in Sri Lanka, the people I met in Dubai, the people I met in Portugal, the people I met in Norway, the people I met in Denmark, the people I met in Nicaragua and Costa Rica, or the people that I met in Mexico, the people all of the all of the people and all of these experiences that somehow in my brain stay. The people that I cross paths with in airports, and had chats with, and their experiences and their lives constantly feed into how I process and how I see things and who I see, right?
Right,
Because you live in a society where certain people who do certain things look a certain way, right? Until you go to another country when
right,
you're like,
totally.
oh wow, you do that, and and it really breaks down um your arrogance. And so it allows you, even if you are confident in and of yourself and within yourself, it keeps you humble in remembering that you are not the center, and that having other perspectives, having other interactions can so help you make better decisions about anything in your
Mm,
life. So that I can say is it's been humbling. It's been humbling, and it's allowed me to appreciate. Do you know what? I love the world. I love this world. Don't love everything that goes on in it, but I love people in this world. I love people who live in the high mountains of China. I love people who live in the low levels of, South Africa. And I always think, wow, that person over there is experiencing that thing, right? That is part of my world. And so if I considered it and I sit and I love documentaries, I love reading books, I love autobiographies. I love autobiography about people and their experiences. I'm recently reading Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie and her experiences in her world and her life. And I'm just so like, wow. It doesn't mean I understand her, but it humbles me
yeah.
into understanding somebody else's process and how they saw things and how they experience things. And I think that has been so enriching and so humbling. It affects everything I do all the time. I watch people with fascination because
Mm,
everybody's a world, right?
yeah.
Everybody has trails and trails and trails of things around them. And so yeah,
Mm,
that has been some of what my international experience has allowed me to.
that's, yeah. I mean, I think we're almost the same person, apart from obviously you've got more hair than I do. But I, I, I have come to believe that travel is one of the best things to invest in because, well, as you were speaking, it, I had this vision of you standing there, but with an orb around you that was segmented, maybe by the number of countries in the world. And every time you visit one and you experience some of the culture, even though there are subcultures within the cultures, it,
Mm,
it turns on the light of one of those segments of that orb. And the
yeah,
more travel you have, I've just got this vision of more lights coming on around you. And in a
yeah,
way, while it's light, it illuminates the way forward, but it
yeah.
also makes you sensitive and receptive to the nuances of language, that,
Mm,
which is a subset of culture more broadly.
yeah,
In our Ghana heritage, being direct is not always welcome. Like we will
yeah,
be the most polite, roundabout, sometimes way, but then other times it will be. And but where you've got so many enriching, illuminating experiences,
mm,
I feel that it really helps you in leadership, but also connectivity with, well, fellow humans on this journey that we call life, right? Because
hmm,
there's
yeah,
nothing powerful than speaking the language of the country you're in to
yeah,
connect.
yeah,
And if you understand the culture on a deeper level, I can
mm,
imagine that you're in some places, like you just turn up and like, oh my God, our sister, you may not look like us, but you
yeah.
get
You
that's
get, you get, yeah,
yeah.
you get me. Yeah, it's interesting, and I think, especially living in London, I think one of the things that, I'm not a fan of London, but one of the things that I do love about London is the fact that when I'm out, I'm always encountering different languages, and it's always so interesting to me because I watch the facial expressions and the tones, and before I used to speak other languages, what got me through was that I had somehow learned to listen to tone. So I could laugh when you were expecting me to laugh because I understood the tone of what you were saying. And that for me is magical because it just allows you to humanize people, right?
Yeah.
To people are not intangible to you. You treat them as people because strangely enough, so many of us detach humanity from other people that are foreign to us, regardless, right? And humanizing people that dress differently, that look differently, that is freedom,
Mm.
and it allows you to operate from a place where, yes, leadership is easier, connecting with people is easier, understanding people is easier because you are not stuck in you, right? Because you can see you in them even if they look completely different from you.
Powerful stuff.
So yeah.
I don't know why, but something tells me that that is that is love in action. When you can
Mm,
look at the human being and feel connected to them I was gonna say on a solar level, but you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
but like deeper than the exoskeleton, you can feel that person, you know.
yeah.
So yeah, thank you. I could and would and will be listening to you for more hours, but I think I will. Oh, okay. One more question. One
Okay.
more question. One more question before you tell me that you have to go. So
Um,
when with 2026 is a go, like I can't believe like we Happy New Year and fireworks and now midway through February.
so
Um
yeah, so quick, so quick.
it's time flies when you're having fun or getting older because but anyway, either way, more experience, not older. I'm not doing old. Looking ahead, what's
I
a
love
mission?
old. I love. Okay, I have a completely different view on old, but we'll talk about it another day. Oh my gosh, I love getting older. Oh my goodness. Sorry. Anyway, I'm not going to fan out about that. Okay, ask the question.
We're gonna come back to this because we could definitely come back to this. Yeah. So looking ahead, what is sort of a mission led goal that you're most excited about for, I guess, either PIE advisory or Omega 7 as part of the bigger family, you know?
I think what I'm at least for 2026, what I'm most excited about is being able to expand our work deeper into Mexico, and that allowing us to then expand our work into the areas of conflict around the world that we want to expand into. So for me, my goal is there's three initiatives for Omega 7: the FundHerShip grant, Nave Nodriza, which is mothership in Spanish, and that is where we work with smaller organizations, female-led organizations, to be able to get them funder ready and to get the funders to them and to help them grow. And
Mm,
then Global Grassroots
yeah.
Initiative
I saw that.
is,
It's coming soon. Coming soon.
yeah, Global Grassroots Initiative is getting money directly into the hands of women who've been displaced by conflict end of, so they
Mm,
can start, so they can build, so they can go, and not giving them workshops or anything like that, allowing them to have the money. And I was inspired by this by um, the guy from Give Directly, and I always remember his name until I don't. He is on the program The Rest is Politics, and forgive me if you want, but I always remember your name and then I don't. And because he has an organization called Give Directly, which he learned as he was doing, he was, I think, in a political position in Afghanistan or something like that, in other places, and they so many millions were being spent on teams coming in to help that didn't affect anything. But as soon as they started giving money directly into the hands of the women,
mhm.
it immediate change happened in the villages. They tried it in a few. Did you find his name?
I was looking for it. Was it Paul Niehaus or Michael Fay or Rohit Wanchu or Jeremy Shapiro?
No, none of them. Give Directly is an organization. The Rest is Politics. Are you looking at The Rest is Politics?
I was looking at Give Directly. So the rest is
Okay.
politics.
The Rest is Politics. You'll find his name there, and then I'll be like, yeah, that's good. Anyway, so and I've known this.
I've got Alistair Campbell and Rory Stewart.
Rory Stewart.
Okay.
Rory Stewart. And I'm not agreeing with everything he says, but Rory Stewart. And I've known this. I've experienced it. I've seen it. I've lived it. Giving money directly to women who are on the ground and know what they need to fix fixes the thing that you thought you could fix coming from outside, not having any experience of the land, not having any experience of the culture, not having anything, right? And one of the things that is failing a lot of women in refugee camps and a lot of women who've been displaced is the fact that people are coming in and trying to tell them how to do things rather than just giving them the money to do the
Oh,
thing they need to
yes.
do. So yeah,
That is awful. So this, when does this, when is it happening?
it will happen. You see, again, there's a timeline and stages. If
Okay.
once we're launching fully into Mexico, because this is another thing. I'm going to be very candid. I'm a black woman. I'm a black woman that is going into a territory that few black women go into, and that is saying, "You, I know how to handle money better than you, Mr. White Man in the bank." Uh, and and so I can't do that. As charming as I am, I can't do that. I need to prove myself. I
Right.
need to have a strategy. So the FundHerShip grant was the first phase of the strategy. The Mexico deploying funding into the hands of women from large organizations is the second phase of the strategy. And then once that happens, it happens so that the numbers cannot refute what can be done. So then we're allowed to give directly to the women through and that's the process. But yeah.
This is thinking. I'm coming to you for thinking, just for thinking advice, because your brain is phenomenal at the interconnectivity, building strategy, but then above that, I think I said it to you the other day, like most people, if I didn't, I should have. Most people don't want to necessarily go the first mile, let alone the extra mile, and do. You know, there's
Yeah.
plenty of people with an idea who will talk about it year on year and never do it. But what I'm really feeling and understanding from this conversation is that you think about it, you form a strategy, and then you gather the resources necessary to execute, and you make it happen.
I make it happen. And if I have to shift how my strategy works so it happens, I will. And if I get to a place where this is not working at all, I'll stop. Because there is no glorious purpose. It's continuous, consistent struggle.
No. So, no, you're totally right. And one final question I wanted to
Are you
ask you,
sure?
because I would. This will just turn into like the EastEnders omnibus edition, just a Christmas, which I used to love, but like stuff like that. So they'll listen to this in chunks. But if you could go back in time and speak to an earlier version of yourself, navigating the choices and career paths that you have had, what one thing would you share, knowing what you know now?
Be patient.
What's that?
Be patient.
Be patient.
Plan better. Be patient. Plan better. Because the world was not going to shift itself for you. So unless you know how to shift outside of how the world works, you're going to get disappointed a lot. Because you're trying to work within a system that isn't shifting for you. So be patient. Plan well.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. I often say to be delayed is not to be denied. And maybe it's tangential to what you're saying, but I do think separately that God's timing is the best, full of these things. And the reason, because sometimes, if I may borrow what you said about patience, it takes time to know what you need to know, but also what you don't know.
Exactly.
Before you can be a catalyst for change, as you've been, without the experience of trying to raise funds yourself, you couldn't have done what you're doing now.
No, no, I couldn't. But also, the other thing is patience allows you to see things that the rush doesn't. Right?
Yes.
Patience allows you, because when you if you sometimes, you know what really irks me in my neighborhood? If I see something, I'm like, oh, is that new? And somebody turns around and says to me, no, that's been there for years. Irks me to the bone. Because I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean I haven't been noticing that really noticeable thing that was right there? Where was my mind? Right? Because I've come to the place where I'm like, I need to see. I need to be patient. I need to, and people, even in there's other goals I have, and people are like, oh, you haven't done it yet. I'm like, yep, but I'm not rushing to run there. I need to understand because being patient, zeal without wisdom, and wisdom comes from patience a lot. Not everything, but it comes from, can I hold myself? Can I wait? And when you see kids and stuff, you have kids, I have kids, they're just like, and they're like, oh, I should have waited. And we look at it, we're like, yeah, you should have, I know better. But do we really apply it to ourselves?
No. It comes into so many things, from being present, mindfulness within that as a bit broader construct, but delayed gratification as well. Like There's
Wow.
studies showing that kids that can do that are likely to fare better in society more broadly because they have that patience. You
Yeah.
say to them, you one sweet now or two sweets tomorrow. The ones that can wait and delay gratification don't miss the thing in the rush, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so good. I'm going to be watching this back like instantly. I can.
Agreed.
Before,
Oh,
before,
bless.
before
I'm
it's
flattered.
been it's been great. But before I go, I just as a mini outro, I wanted to
Mhm.
say thank you so much for what has been an insightful, inspirational, and really honest conversation. And I think several things stand out for me, but one of them that's coming through loud and clear is that this idea that fulfillment isn't just about finding like whatever the right job is. It's about understanding your power,
Mm.
building insights, creating ecosystems that support your growth and the growth of others. Because
Yeah.
if it's not, then why are you trying to be in it?
Yeah.
And I think for anyone that's been listening today and wondering how to take the next step toward more meaningful work, I really hope this can be their reminder that you don't have to wait for permission to think
Yeah.
bigger about your impact. And I'm definitely going to be including links to anything I can, PIE advisory, OmegaSeven, FundHerShip. You let me have them, plus your picture. Remember, you got to send me a picture as well.
Oh, do I? Oh gosh. Okay, I'll send you. Oh yeah. Okay, I've been told off about my pictures because I like to use obscure pictures, but I'm trying.
No, whatever however you want to show up in the photo is fine. I have no brand guidelines or anything like that.
Okay.
It's
No,
fine.
I'll be adult about it.
Also, not being adult is fine, but yeah, I really hope that this episode is going to resonate with tons of people and they will find courage, curiosity, and keep building with intention. But before I go, is there any last parting thing that you would like to share before we conclude section 1 of our omnibus edition?
Yeah. Just don't. Life is really, really hard, and I think we as Black people, especially in the diaspora, especially in other countries, are kind of used to hearing that, right? And that life is hard. That's what it is. But you don't have to make it any harder for yourself. You know, that's what I have to say. Life is hard. Like I'm not. I do not. I don't want to be a martyr. Thank you very much. Right? I don't. You don't. Martyrdom is not something you choose, and I feel like a lot of us do that. Life is already hard. There is no glorious purpose. In continuous consistent. Be not just be gentle. No, don't do the whole. Oh, I'm going to be gentle on myself. I'm going to treat myself to something I can't afford, kind of thing. No. Honor yourself. Honor yourself with relief and peace. Honor yourself. Don't treat yourself. Honor yourself. Give yourself the honor. And if you don't know how to honor yourself, get in touch. I'll help you.
I chief cheerleader of the good vibes and peace, I think, is what I'm going to entitle this episode. Because yeah, that's a powerful end. And yeah, thank you so much. And I can't wait to share this and
Yay.
the impact it's going to make, and for you to keep going with the FundHerShip grants. And I can only imagine how happy women are to be receiving what hitherto would have felt like an impossible contribution to their efforts to grow businesses, which are the backbone of our economy. Small businesses are that. So
yeah,
thank you, and I'm praying for more life, more energy, more blessing. And next time we talk, we'll find out why you want to get old, because we need to.
Oh my gosh! Wow. Yes. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for letting me speak. I love people who let me speak. Give me a platform. I will see. Thank you so much for fulfilling that for me.
You've been brilliant. It was well worth it. So catch up with you soon. Thank you, and have a great weekend. All right.
You too. Bye.
Take care. Bye, Nana.